wait till the...
Yeah. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the July 17th, 2024 NYCERS Board of Trustees Investment Meeting. Ms. Winery, will you please call the roll?
Good morning. Chair, Mayor's Office.
Brian Berge, representing Mayor Eric Adams, present.
Comptroller's Office.
John Dorsett, designee for Comptroller Brad Lander, and I just want to note that Allison Hirsch is joining us remotely today.
Public Advocate's Office. Borough President Manhattan.
Keisha Sutton James for Borough President Mark Levine, present.
Borough President Brooklyn.
Serena Lozada for Borough President Antonio Reynoso.
Borough President Bronx.
Robert Moralia, for Borough President Vanessa L. Gibson.
Borough President Queens.
Alan Swisher for Queensborough President Donovan Richards.
Borough President Staten Island.
Dan Master for Staten Island Borough President Vito Fasella.
International Brotherhood of Teamsters.
Julie Kobe and Ruben Torres via Zoom on behalf of President Gregory Floyd.
Transport Workers Union. District Council 37.
Robin Roche and Ray Santander on behalf of Executive Director Henry Garrido.
Bill Dukes, Kevin Liu, Allison Hirsch, Alan Swisher, Daniel Master, and Ruben Torres are participating remotely via NYCERS video conferencing procedures, and we do have a quorum.
All right, fantastic. So I see on the public agenda, we have a single item, if that's right, Mr. Dorsett?
Yes, but before we head into that single item, I just want to note for the record that the Board of Ed Retirement System is also here for the joint session. So I'd just like to ask that they make an acknowledgement.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Dorsett. Please, if you're here from the Board of Education Retirement System, please acknowledge yourself for the record.
Hi, Sul Mehta from BERS and Allison and John are attending as trustees. We'll take these matters up at our next meeting. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else from BERS on the meeting here today? All right. Well, thank you very much, Salil. And there's not a quorum, obviously, for BERS, so BERS will indeed take these matters up at its next properly constituted meeting.
So thank you, Brian. With all due respect to the chair, I'm going to step in now. Being circulated in hard copy is a copy of the, did you need a copy?
I could use a copy, yes.
All right, if there's an extra copy for Brian, a copy of the BAM request for additional resources, commonly referred to as corpus. This was presented at a previous meeting. We have circulated a copy today with some numbers on the last page, which is the actual proposal. We are happy at this time to address any comments or questions that trustees have regarding the presentation that I believe you received at the last meeting. So I don't know what else to say other than we've engaged with outside organizations to do a review of not only BAM's operations, but also the funding of the staff of the Bureau of Asset Management, and and through that study have brought forth a resolution for a market adjustment to move certain salaries within the Bureau of Asset Management in line with industry standards. And that is the resolution that is before us. And I think it would only be appropriate to remind the board that the staff that you see here are the corpus-funded staff that are that in part their salaries come from the corpus of of NYCERS, and in total from the 5 retirement systems. However, there are members of the Bureau of Asset Management or folks that are housed in the Bureau of Asset Management that are not corpus employees, and they are not covered in this resolution. Allison and I are not included in this resolution, so I just want to make that abundantly clear to folks around the table that corpus-funded employees under 13-705 or investment personnel that perform investment functions on behalf of the 5 retirement systems. So that is my just caveat that I wanted to put on the record so that folks are aware of what we're asking about today. So I don't know if anybody had any questions or comments.
Well, I would like to open it up for trustees with any questions and comments. I certainly have many, but I don't want to monopolize the floor because I know there are a number of trustees in the room today who are really only seeing this right now. So if there are any questions from any trustees other than myself, I would like to give folks the opportunity to be heard. Mr. Miraglia?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess can we just start with that very point, which is why are we just seeing this now?
I would refer that question to Bam.
What was the, excuse me, can you repeat the question?
Question is, why am I just seeing this now?
So this has been circulated, this resolution, it was in convene. It was also circulated at the last meeting. However, there were many discussions regarding the final salaries. And this version that is before you has taken into account some of the questions that we've gotten from trustees regarding the specific salary levels at the top end. And that is the version that is being circulated today. I will remind those of you who are not aware that a version of this has already been passed by another retirement system. It was with the understanding of that retirement system that the numbers that they had approved were up to amounts with an expectation that the numbers would be revised, and this is the revised number. So the previous resolution that was passed by another system was an up to amount, and these are within that in that range also. So that is why that's why they're slightly different. I believe it's the top 10 or 11 jobs that are, or titles, I should say, 10 or 11 titles that are different from a previous version. But a majority of what you're seeing here today is consistent.
I wanted to note, Mr. Dorsa, for Mr. Maraglia's benefit and for the benefit of anyone else who was not able to log in to convene yesterday afternoon when this was posted, that this also likewise consists of up to amounts, and my understanding is that it cannot or will not take effect until probably at least TRS, though I don't know the exact contours of it, are likewise on board with the proposal. So I mean, you know, so the up to structure is still existing in this one as well, is my understanding. Just, you know, so that you can have a clearer sense of what this document in front of you means.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there any other questions from any other trustees?
I have a comment.
Yes.
I heard John in the beginning saying that these increases were to help, I guess, market value. So in terms of diversity and just making sure that, you know, these salaries are attractive for someone maybe coming out new or changing jobs or whatever have you, are these salaries closer to them? I mean, obviously the private sector is a different story, but just making sure that this is attractive and people would want to fill these kind of positions. Or do you see what I mean?
Yeah. So look, we believe that the numbers that that are here will make this office more attractive to people seeking employment within the investment world and within the city of New York. We recognize that there is an institution 10 blocks or so down that pays very high salaries to folks coming out of school. That is a reality of where we are positioned. We think that we have heard from several applicants in the past that have gone through the process that the numbers that were being offered through the Bureau of Asset Management were not competitive with the investment world. We conducted this study with Mercer. We have the results that are here. These fell in line. These are below the, as you may recall from the last meeting, below the 50 percentile median. We do think that these will be more attractive to find the right candidates. And we think it'll help to bring about a more diverse set of applications that are coming in the door and expanding the pool of folks that would be interested in working here and that we'd be interested in having work here, to be fair.
Thank you.
Ms. Sutton, James, do you have a question or comment?
I did. Initially, as we were, this proposal was presented a couple months ago, or a version of this proposal was presented a couple months ago. One of the concerns and rationales for the raises was that there had been turnover in the investment staff, and but we didn't have a sense of the magnitude of that turnover. And I spoke with members of BAM before this meeting, offline over the last, a month or so ago, and requested that BAM present some data to support that that assertion. And I haven't seen it. I don't know if I've missed it in convene, but I'm just curious as to whether or not that analysis has been done.
So,
I
the-
think, sorry, John, this is Allison. I think it would be great if we could ask Kate Visconti to jump in on this if possible, because she actually has done that analysis and can report back on it. On
you
our
beat me
behalf.
to it, Allison.
I gotta do something while I'm stuck at home feeling generally fine, so.
Okay. Sure, I'm happy to jump in here. I have in front of me a few numbers that might be helpful to share. Maybe I can share my screen here. Okay, so maybe I'll start just quickly with some of the recruitment challenges we've seen. So to your specific point, Keisha, yes, there has been turnover, and I'll get into that in a minute. But what we've seen in particular is challenges relating to our ability to recruit talent. So here we have that kind of bucketed into a few different categories. One is just the fact that we faced a lot of challenges in receiving qualified candidate applications. That one is harder to quantify because we're talking about basically a counterfactual. But we can give a few anecdotal examples. I know I see some folks from infrastructure in the room who can speak to their experience on this. But for example, we received 50 applications over the course of a year for infrastructure, and 3 of them were deemed to ultimately meet the qualifications for the role. The top 2 that were offered the position were initially sort of declined the position. So we have had a lot of challenge recruiting qualified candidates, and I'll defer to others on the team to jump in on that point. Otherwise, I'll move on a little bit to candidates withdrawing from the hiring process. This is where we really see the greatest challenge. We receive a lot of applications who express interest in the position, are ultimately qualified, but once they determine that the ranges are static, end up withdrawing from the process, so they can't receive a higher salary than what's listed in the range. Yeah.
Remove the screen.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. So we can circulate that information, but the point here is that we do receive a number of applications that withdraw due to salary considerations halfway through the process, and we can share in executive session a little bit more detail on that. Yeah.
So if I could just add, it has been challenging to attract and retain really good qualified individuals. I'll be the first to say it's not all about money, and it never should be. I actually think this is a great place to work, but we need to be more competitive. It's a competitive marketplace in order to be able to bring people in, to attract and retain diverse talent, as well as been even more challenging. So we think this gets us closer to it. There are a number of other things we're doing really to enhance the opportunities that people have when they work at the Bureau of Asset Management and supporting yours and other pension plans in terms of trying to make it a place where they can enrich their credentials, to get great exposure to different asset classes, to have voice and a career path within the Bureau of Asset Management. But again, it's been really, really challenging at the current levels of salary, many of which haven't been adjusted in over 9 years.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead, Kate.
Oh, okay, sorry, Keisha. I do have a little bit more information on the specific question you asked, which is around turnover. And I can get back to, apologies, I did forget we were in public session for a minute there, but I can get into a little bit more the detail on what we were talking about before. But before I do that, let me show you something that is fine to share in public session, which is this chart here. This is an indication of our resignations. This is since 2017. As you can see, there's 42 resignations. It actually goes by tenure, so the majority of our resignations are happening with folks who have been here between 0 and 5 years, who have an interest in working for the city and hope to stay, but hope to also be able to advance their career and gain higher salaries and haven't been able to find that path within our organization. So that's the last thing I'll show you before you get into your question, Keisha.
Thank you for that. And just so I'm reminded, because I am having trouble pulling up the prior proposal, do the numbers reflected in this, I'm holding down the button and I don't need to hold down the button.
No, that's our innovation here. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're so fancy. Do the numbers reflected in this proposal, the salary levels reflect what level, because we had discussed a 47 and a 70, what level elevation or increase does this reflect? I think it was 47?
Yeah, so I'll have to calculate that number. I don't know exactly. It would be still around 47 for the majority of the positions, but then for the top end where we've reduced it, it would probably be somewhere between the 25th and 47th percentile for those positions. I would break it out, and we can get you that number. I can try to calculate it very quickly.
So my impression, and sorry to intervene, is just for everyone's benefit, the numbers are largely the same as the original proposal until the point of chief risk off, oh, maybe chief compliance officer?
No.
But SIO is the same, right?
No, SIO
Above
is
that?
That's correct. Yeah.
Chief risk officer and above on the.
Chief risk officer and above are where the adjustments have been made. And OGC council on the bottom, but everything else is the same, is my understanding on the numbers. Just for those who are, understandably trying to synthesize all of this right now.
Thanks. One more question. It's really a broader one. When this was initially proposed by BAM, it was both a conversation about the corpus funding and the increases, as well as the trustee service compact, and it appears those two items have been decoupled. And so why has it been decoupled? Because I raised the question because I'm concerned that we would be, voting on increases without discussing and determining a resolution on what the trustees are going to be in terms of that transparency that came. There was a whole process. Let me back up a little bit and say, all of this is a result of the analysis that was done by McKinsey and Mercer around the STAR project, as well as compensation. But the elements of discussion right now are only about the compensation conversation, leaving aside the elements about how BAM will operate more effectively and more efficiently, and in terms of its interactions with trustees, et cetera. So I'm concerned that we're in decoupling the two, how are we going to get to the thing that we actually started with, which was STAR?
Sure, I can jump in on this one. We decoupled them actually, Keisha, at the request of the majority of labor trustees across the systems, including at NYCERS. And we did that because there was a sense that there was a concern that we needed more time and discussion over the contours of the Service Compact Act, and not all of the trustees were comfortable with the concept or the structure. We have every intent to continue moving that process forward, and the hope is that at the September board meeting, Kate, tell me if my timing here is wrong, like we would have a process with trustees start in September at the board meeting to go through the Service Compact Act point by point with recommendations and understanding, and move forward just in a sequential way, as opposed to doing it all at the same time. But that is still very much alive, and the goal is to move forward on that as quickly as possible. But there was a request by the labor trustees across all 5 systems to decouple them from points of discussion.
Okay. Without calling into judgment the wisdom of the labor trustees, I just want to voice concern about that. I don't know if anybody else has the same concerns, but I do.
Thank you, Keisha. Would any other trustees like to speak? I don't know if now my time has come or not. Mr. Maraglia.
Just one quick question, because we did discuss it with the OGC Council in previous meetings. Number one, with the title itself and an explanation of what that actually means and what's counted in OGC Council, but also the number. Aside from the number being reduced, what looks to be $50,000 less than it was, it wasn't just the number that was a little shocking and confusing last time. It was the basis on which that number was reached. So it was expressed that we had a lack of comps for these particular positions. It was questioned what the titles were. It was questioned, why are these salaries at that level when these folks are not really handling an incredible amount of this technical work in-house, but rather supervising or outsourcing it. So having not been a part of these discussions as a BP trustee, I'd like some explanation as how we came to this new number, where the reduction came from, just some reasoning, since we've been excluded from this, some of the more important discussions, apparently.
And also before we begin, my understanding is that the number would still pertain to all 6 who are being transferred in. Is that correct, to Corpus?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
And I just want to respond really quickly, Robert, because it was actually our intent following the last meeting to change the nomenclature there to Private Markets Council from OGC Council, and we failed to make that change. And I think for on the record, we should change maybe amend the resolution to account for that change, because Robert, you did raise this last time and we said we would make that change and we didn't, so we should do so.
Yes, but my understanding is that the underlying problem with the comps remains the same, is that there was a belief on the part of Mercer, which I do not really understand how it was arrived at, that there exist no comparable positions of this nature in the public sector. And given the widespread adoption of private market assets by public pensions, of which we are by no means in the vanguard, I find that rather incredible, to be honest, and always have. But that's just one of many issues which I know I keep previewing, but one day I will discuss.
So, yeah.
Can I ask, Mr. Chair, would you care to share?
I know, I feel like now I'm being a little too cutesy with this. I just wanted to make sure everyone had a chance to talk and express themselves, and that it didn't just become the Brian Berge show, because that's not an interesting show.
I'm sure we'll chime in.
So I understand that not all trustees have really had a chance to review this. I have some more familiarity with it, but I also want to say I share the sense that, you know, maybe the full board hasn't had as complete an opportunity to think about this subject in all its facets as maybe they would like to have. And I think that that's something that this board should take cognizance of at this time, especially noting that this is not a self-executing instantaneous thing. There's still the fact that TRS's position remains unclear, and I'm not going to go into any detail on that in public session because we're at a NYCERS meeting and I'm a NYCERS trustee, but the fact of the matter is that this is a consolidated kind of thing amongst multiple systems. Given that, it's not clear to me, other than as a tactical matter, why it is so important to be moving forward here today, and I would exhort the board to not move forward today. And at an appropriate time, I'm going to make a motion to table this matter. That said, on my side, I am not in the position of being obstructionist for the sake of it. There are versions of a path forward that my office could support. We won't support this one. We won't support it today. We won't support it at the next meeting. And the reason we won't do that is because it's just fundamentally too much at once for us. There's a lot of conversations that are embedded into this proposal that have not been fully developed or vetted, because it's not just a proposal about salary recommendations, it's a proposal about increasing staffing, and it's a proposal about really fundamentally changing BAM's operations to a mixed corpus funding, non-corpus funding model, to for at least with respect to the interfaces with the systems, almost entirely corpus funded model. And honestly, on that last point, I don't think there's been any real conversation anywhere about what that means and what the implications might be for the systems. And I really think that that last part requires a lot more thought than it's been given. It wasn't examined by McKinsey meaningfully, or honestly at all, as I recall, other than acknowledging that some positions are corpus funded. It obviously wasn't on the ambit of Mercer, and it's kind of just been on the back burner as we spend all our time talking about salary figures. But this is everything. This is salary, this is new vacancy requests, this is corpus transfers. And I think, as Keisha was suggesting, to have something of this magnitude, which really results in a pretty fundamental change to the way BAM operates, should not be something that is undertaken lightly, and should be undertaken with a sense of what do trustees expect in return. Because again, much like Keisha, I would never cast aspersions on my labor colleagues, but I tend to be of the school of thought that if you're being asked to give something away, you should have an understanding of what you're getting in return. And I am totally confident that BAM has every intention of following up on the trustee service compact and making right on whatever promises it might make and we might adopt in that context. But there's just no denying from my mind that the climate of an issue changes when effectively you've gotten what you want already. So overall, I think I just would need to see much more data before I could even really entertain this, which, to be clear, I would never be in a position of voting yes on this. But for the benefit of all trustees, given the magnitude of it, it feels like a lot more information is needed with real data, real, concrete, descriptive data about how BAM's challenges compare to the rest of the city landscape in terms of its recruiting, because I see numbers in aggregate from 2017, which, by the way, I only saw this morning. I mean, I understand I'm not, but in reality, it's like a screenshot. It pops up, it pops down. 42 people since 2017, over 7 years. That's an average of 6 per year. Attrition is a thing. That's not like there exists a city agencies that has lost nobody since 2017. I'd be really curious about NYCERS administrative staff turnover during that timeline. It is a thing that attrition happens. If BAM thinks they are unique in that, they are not. When I hear that there's an application posted, publicly posted, these things happen with city jobs, that attracted a whole bunch of unqualified candidates, that's just like a running punchline for every city job that's ever posted. They're just very visible jobs. People get ideas that they're qualified for things they are not. It happens. I too have had a hard time filling jobs and have had to deal with resumes from people who are like truck drivers and stuff who just want to level up. It's a wonderful thing in a certain sense that people feel more open to qualifying for public jobs. I don't think it necessarily signals a crisis. So I feel like I need to see really concrete information about what the staffing challenges have been over the years, whether they've intensified over the years, and the pace of postings over the years. Because BAM is at a level of vacancies right now where it's not totally obvious to me that they have, been posting all of these rigorously lately, as opposed to wanting to be able to post them at a higher rate, which is understandable, but also not the most compelling narrative for me if that were to be the case. So that is one thing that I would need to see more of. I understand that BAM has a belief that this proposal would advance equity amongst gender, racial groups within BAM's ranks. I have no empirical basis about what the outcomes might be on the basis of that issue. I really have no idea, but it's something that has been of obvious interest to many trustees, and I think we're entitled to more than just belief on that subject. I think we're entitled to actual concrete information about what this proposal would look like in that regard, and we don't really have that yet. And finally, this idea that people haven't gotten raises for 9 years, I'm just not understanding that, because I thought everyone got the pattern to 2021. Am I wrong?
You are wrong.
Who did not get the most recent pattern? The most recent one, which went back to 2021.
Oh, I thought you meant the one prior.
Yes. Did everyone get it in back to 2021?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so there's no one who hasn't gotten a raise for 9 years. Is that correct?
No, they didn't get their raises for 8 years prior to that, Brian. Apologies.
They got the retro to 2021, though, right? 'Cause
Correct,
that's how
but
you
they
get
did not
raises.
get retro from 2015 moving forward. So that is
Yeah.
6 years. I apologize.
6-year
for us
period. So
misspeaking.
yes, I've heard the 9-year period bandied about anecdotally among trustees in this issue. That's sort of part of the problem when you don't have concrete information to rely on. Misinformation spreads. No one has been without a raise for 9 years at BAM. And how many people actually did not get the raise? under
Just,
certain-
Brian, on that point for a moment, the retros did not go into effect until the end of May 2024, and yes, people received them. When we started this conversation, it was accurate to say that no one had gotten a raise in 9 years. That has now changed. People have now gotten retro to 2021, and so that has shifted to 6. But that is, to accuse anyone of purposefully misrepresenting
I am
is not
accusing
accurate.
NYCERS. I'm just saying that the nature of an issue like this, where it's all carried forward in kind of ad hoc conversations, is conducive to misunderstandings of this nature. I am not accusing BAM of fostering a misunderstanding intentionally or otherwise. I really want to make that clear.
So, Brian, I just want to react to something you had said, and I think you may have just misspoke, but you implied that the trustees were giving something to the Bureau of Asset Management. I think that's kind of a mischaracterization. I think we are asking the board, and all the boards for that matter, to pay for services that are rendered for the exclusive benefit of the pension funds. And this is an investment expense that we have brought before the board, that we have asked that the boards consider paying for personnel and for new personnel that work entirely for the benefit of the funds. It's the reason that it's an investment expense. It's not an administrative expense.
Sure.
It's a reason that it conforms with the administrative code and the IRS code for that matter.
Sure.
But it's not a gift to the
No,
way that you
no, it's certainly
characterized
not
it
a
made
gift
sense.
in the New York constitutional sense. But I work for the exclusive benefit of the city of New York as well. When I go to my boss and I ask for a raise and I ask for more people, I understand that I'm making a request.
I'm not saying it's not a request. You're acting as if it's some
No,
gift that
no.
we're magically showing up here.
It's certainly
asking
not a
for.
gift, and I know that BAM works for their money, and I want to make it really clear to any BAM staff who are on this meeting, who are sitting in the audience, I appreciate the work that you do. And I would never want to scare people away from a valuable public service, and I want this to end at some point. But I'm not comfortable with the way this has the potential to end today.
Look, I think that we've come here today, there are 3 components in this. One is the market adjustment of the salaries for current employees. The second is the reallocation of resources from a city-funded line to a corpus-funded line to reflect the fact that the work that those individuals is doing is for the exclusive benefit of the retirement systems. At the dawn of corpus in the early 2000s, it was not contemplated that corpus would last. It was in the early days an experiment that they wanted to make sure that they didn't put the whole investment staff onto corpus at the time, and it was a slow and gradual transition from as more and more people got hired to shift over to corpus lines and have the city not pay for it, but have the systems pay for it, because the systems are getting the benefit. We think that is in line with we think that is wholly appropriate, and that is in line with the function that those individuals perform. Then the third component of this is the addition of up to 21 individual lines in order to accomplish all of the things that the trustees have indicated that they would like, whether it be more bespoke deals, smaller, more nuanced deals, deals that require more due diligence. All of those things that we've identified that we think we can do better require more personnel to do. And the fact of the matter is, the postings that we had out at the salary levels that we had out were not attracting candidates that could perform what the boards ultimately have asked BAM to consider. Rather than just seemingly pull numbers out of the air, we reached out to an independent entity to do a review of the marketplace and provide us at least a guide to get salaries to a level that we think are more competitive with the industry. The reality is that there are very few public pension plans in this world that have as many assets and as many complications as the Bureau of Asset Management and the New York City retirement systems. That is a reality of the world that we are in. Alone, apart from the other 5 systems, this is likely one of the top 15 plans in size in the entire country, NYCERS by itself. Collectively, the 5 systems are in the top 5, regardless of how you cut how you want to calculate the number. The collective force of the 5 retirement systems make it one of the 5 largest collectives of retirement benefits in the country. Those are facts. There is a complication when you do diligence deals for more than one client, and in this case, 5 retirement systems, each one with their own nuanced way of approaching an investment. All of those things complicate and make it very hard for us to have a one-to-one match to any system that's out there. If you look at our neighbors within the state, some of those salaries are higher, some are lower. We're trying to find systems that are somewhat similar to what we're doing. It is very difficult. So that's why we got an independent advisor to run a scenario and provide us some opportunities. That's what you're seeing today as a result. Julie, sorry, Chair. You're good, John.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
So I just want to comment on what John just said. Talent and trying to attract and retain is something so important to us. We have a due diligence to serve our members and future retirees as best we can. Retaining, I think, is something so important, because then if we can't retain, how can we create an environment that can be a place where people want to work and continue to do the good work for our current retirees and future retirees. And also, smaller pension systems are paying out more and, with less responsibilities. So I just want to say that I think talent is super important, so that we can continue to do all the great work that we're doing. So that's just my comment.
I completely, Mr. Santander, did you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We've sat through meetings and explanations, and I have to say, I've found the comments by Chief Investment Officer utterly compelling, and also Allison as to, I'm not in those meetings at BAM, but when I hear that you can't do deals because you don't have the staff to evaluate deals, or you can't do deals on time, and that staff is being, frankly, worn out. I mean, we know something about that, Robin and I, about us and our members being worn out. I mean, that's a real thing. And I think that provides justification for the actions that we are considering doing today. And also 41, I think it was it 41, 42 people that have resigned in the last number of years. Many of them are in that beginner to 5-year.
Yeah, let me just put a point of clarification. That is 0, people who have been here for a tenure of 0 to 5 years, that's the 42. It's higher if you incorporate folks with longer tenure.
Right, thank you for that, Kate. The point I wanted to make is that's actually a very significant number because that's the seed corn that won't make it to 6 to 10 years, won't make it to middle management and indeed upper management at BAM. So we're in effect, by training them at below the market minimum, we're subsidizing, we're paying for them to then go on to someone else fully trained. And I think that's, you know, business-wise, I think that doesn't make sense at all. I mean, if people want to stay but can't because of a reasonable expectation of a salary increase, then that's short-sighted on the part of what I believe is a very sophisticated organization. I mean, we've got $275 billion, or correct me, in assets. So I find the arguments advanced by BAM compelling, and they also are compelling to our principal. Thank you.
So I just want to say, and I speak from, you know, over 20 years of experience in the Bureau of Asset Management in a couple of different capacities. But I will say this, I've worked with some great people that don't work here anymore, but work at other retirement systems, some in the state and some at state plans, and they were great. We weren't as competitive, and folks left to take a linear position or a lateral position in a retirement system in a different state sometimes, or at a different municipality for a better opportunity. And I think that speaks volumes when we're in New York City and we let that talent pool that are now in very senior positions at other retirement systems, we let them go because we couldn't be competitive. And I say that from the history of being here, and that's not to try to change an opinion. That's just a statement of what I've experienced as somebody who's worked in pensions for a majority of my work life, and I think people know that I'm very committed to the Bureau of Asset Management and have been for a very long time. So it's important to me that it thrives, but I have seen that what Ray is talking about play out just in my professional life here, and I still run into those individuals at different things, and they still speak very fondly of their time here and how great the opportunity set was, but they found the rest of their career and financially somewhere else. And that is, you know, something that we can't correct those wrongs, right? But maybe we can fix it for the future.
So just very briefly, I think it is quite possible and even advisable to disaggregate the various aspects of this proposal to really actually test some of these assertions, which otherwise don't really have much more to belief to back them up. If you think that higher salaries will attract better candidates, that is not the same as saying we also need to shift 36 people over from Corpus, from city levy to Corpus. That is not the same as saying we also need 21 additional heads on top of our vacancies. The natural thing for me to do, this is just speaking for myself, in a situation of uncertainty, is to take the first step towards addressing that uncertainty, and then based on the information you receive from that, take further steps thereafter as warranted. We could very easily separate this aspect of the proposal concerning the salary from further aspects of the proposal concerning the Corpus shift, more or less unexplained, and the additional headcounts, which I mean, maybe they're warranted. I don't really know. That hasn't been something we've been talking about lately. So I don't really understand, even if one feels like that salary should be higher, which again, directionally, I think we could, there are worlds in which my office could agree with that as well. It's just not a validation of the entire proposal. It's not. And I mean, I understand that there's been higher attrition rates for younger staff than older staff. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find an organization where that's not the case, because it is the nature of any organization that there are fewer positions that you can advance to. And younger people leave when they realize that there's only so many spots they can go up on. But I feel like I've been taking over this conversation, and it does need to come to a close at some point. So I would like to recognize Ms. Sutton James.
Sorry, I just wanted to, just a point of clarification, clear my throat. I believe that Kate's data showed 0 to 5 years tenure.
Correct.
Not necessarily junior.
That's
Meaning
correct,
the
yeah.
data did not, I just wanted, as a point of clarification around.
Oh, yes, that's
your
true,
assertion.
Ms. Sutton James.
They may be older, they may be more senior, they
Sure.
may be blah, 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 but
Who
left.
knows?
I don't know. I don't know what that means. I just wanted to make that clarification.
But yes, you are correct about that, Ms. Sutton James. I believe, and Kate, I'm sorry, I don't mean to speak for you, but that was in terms of tenure, not position.
Correct.
Thank you. Mr. Miraglia.
Thank you. Keisha, go ahead. So this yay nay narrative continues to play out, it seems, and I just want to express again, if I haven't done it clearly enough, how frustrating that is. To hear our labor brothers and sisters speak so convincingly on something, I would have loved to have been in on those meetings too. I would also love the opportunity to be convinced by our very capable and deserving staff. This conversation has nothing to do with the deservingness of these folks or the salaries. It's the fact that we've been alienated and not understanding the weight of votes here doesn't mean we have any less or deserving of any less respect or deference or courtesy as a trustee. So I want to make that clear before we go to what seems like an inevitable vote. It's not reflective of this presentation, but the way the presentation has been put forth and us excluded.
So I just want to say, if any trustees, whether borough presidents, city side, or on the labor side, feel that they were excluded in some way from the conversation or feel slighted, I'm sorry that folks feel that way. That is not the intent. I think what I would ask that folks recognize is this is a very intricate process involving 5 separate retirement systems with individual boards, with meetings that have been held with and without the Comptroller's office, amongst side groups of trustees discussing the issues. Some have been raised to Allison and myself and to Kate and Steve. Others have been, talked about amongst different constituent groups within the 5 retirement systems, and that goes across retirement systems, as I think is expected on something of this magnitude that we're asking about today. So if we were not aware of conversations that folks wanted to have about specific issues, or people feel that we were trying to alienate certain groups, that was not the intent. We have been trying to have as many open dialogues as we can with trustees to answer questions regarding specifics. Some more general sessions that we've tried to have. Some trustees, depending on the system or the way that they operate, are more proactive in the way that they engage with the Comptroller's office and also with their other colleagues on the board. We are only able to speak to folks that we're only able to speak to folks that we know want to be spoken to, right? And we also want to be mindful of all of the potential restrictions to having sidebars and to make sure that we're not violating the open meetings laws or any of that. So we're always trying to be cognizant of all of those things. So if folks feel slighted or feel that they weren't included, I apologize for that, but I don't think it has a bearing on the merits of the resolution that is before you, but we will take that into account in our conversations going forward with folks.
Ms. Lozada?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To your point of speaking to folks who want to be spoken to, we all want to be spoken to. We understand that by the nature of your job, sometimes you guys have more fluid conversations, different meetings, and have more time. But I do want to agree with my colleagues. I don't have as much information either, and I would have liked to have the same information. And so I was at the last meeting. Allison did mention it, but we didn't have a full-on conversation about what was coming down. And understandably, like, these numbers were still being worked out, but having those conversations are super important as opposed to different silos and in different ways. And then everyone sort of knows because they know. And then we come in and we're like, oh, 2 hours before we have this, or a day before, I didn't have time to brief my principal on this, and I represent a principal.
Ms., oh, sorry.
We're accountable to our constituency, and so if I don't have time to bring this to my principal, I can't make an informed vote, and I think that that information sharing is important. And so we all want to be spoken to. We're all trustees. It doesn't matter whether we're 1/5 of a vote or one whole vote, we still need the same information.
Ms. Sutton James?
And just to piggyback on that, while the proposal, rather the resolution is close to what had been proposed in May, the decoupling was something I found out when I walked in today, because that wasn't in convene in our board materials. So that is new news to me, not something that I have discussed with my principal, and a big issue, in terms of my being able to cast a vote today.
I just do want to flag that I do believe, and we should check the transcript, that we discussed the decoupling at the last meeting. That it was actually discussed. So I do want, and I don't remember, Ms. Sutton James, if you were at the last meeting or not, and I can't remember whether we discussed it the regular board meeting or the last investment meeting, but it was definitely discussed. Or I don't want to say definitely, I'm 99% sure that it has come up at a prior board meeting and it was discussed.
All right. Ms. Lozada, I believe you had a comment?
Yeah, I don't have any recollection of that either, so I just wanted to
Okay,
state
yeah,
that
I mean,
for the
if we're at a point where we're checking the transcripts, I don't know that that's going to be a satisfying resolution on that particular issue. We're acting as if this is settled, and it doesn't have to be. So I make a motion to table this. But I don't want to make a motion before Ms. Kobe has the opportunity to speak.
May we have a small labor caucus, please?
You may.
Okay. So we may let's take a 5-minute break, and I would ask that we just, can we stop the recording for 5 minutes too? Yeah, it's kind of what the definition of is.
A moment in the eye of God. All right. After a brief caucus, we are now returning to the public session of the NYCERS investment meeting of July 17th, 2024. We continue to be on the item in public agenda. I believe we're at a posture of putting the matter to rest, however that occurs.
I believe you had called for
I had indeed called for a motion to table this matter until the August meeting. Is there a second for that motion?
I second Karina Lozada.
All right, the motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion that
So I would request a roll call vote on the motion to table.
All right. Ms. Winery, will you please proceed with that roll call vote?
Chair, Mayor's Office.
For the reasons already very amply expressed, the mayor is a yes on the motion to table this matter.
Comptroller's Office.
So I will be voting no on the motion to table. I believe that this has been on the agenda at a previous meeting. We've had detailed conversations. We've offered to have detailed conversations with trustees. I recognize some trustees feel that they could have had additional conversations, but I think that we've gone to great lengths to explain the proposal before us. So we'll be voting no.
Public Advocate's Office.
I'm voting no.
Borough President, Manhattan.
Out of concern over the decoupling that was discussed, in our prior discussion, I am going to abstain.
Borough President, Brooklyn. This is, Keisha, this is a motion to table the topic. So I just want to make sure you're clear on that.
Thank you. I vote in favor.
Voting yes. Borough President, Brooklyn.
Yes.
Borough President, Queens.
I will vote to abstain on the motion to table. I certainly empathize with my colleagues, particularly the other borough presidents, appointees, about the importance of being able to discuss things with your principal. However, I believe that I've been presented with enough information to move forward with the vote today. So, however, with that being said, I don't want to interfere with other people's right to request for a table. So I'm going to abstain.
Borough President Staten Island.
I vote yes.
Borough President Bronx.
Yes.
International Brotherhood of Teamsters.
No.
Transport Workers Union. District Council 37.
No.
Motion to table does not carry.
All right. The motion to table has not carried. There's still a pending item in public session.
I would like to call in question to the motion.
All right, so the motion has been made to adopt the resolution that is on the table. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you very much, Ms. Roach. I think I would request a roll call vote unless there's an interest in further discussion.
No objection.
All right, Ms. Winery, proceed to the vote.
Chair, Mayor's Office.
For the reasons we have amply discussed, but which essentially boil down to the lack of any real necessity to do all of these things at once at this particular juncture, the mayor will be voting no on this matter.
Comptroller's Office.
For the reasons previously stated and our belief that this is an appropriate move forward, we'll be voting yes in favor of the resolution.
Public Advocate's Office.
Yes.
Borough President Manhattan.
For reasons previously stated, in particular, the decoupling of the two elements that were initially proposed, I'm voting to abstain.
Borough President Brooklyn.
Likewise, I am also voting to abstain. I don't feel we have enough information to make a vote at this time.
Borough President Queens.
I will vote yes in concurrence with the reasons stated by Mr. Dorsey.
Borough President Staten Island.
For the reasons stated by the chair, I will vote no.
Borough President Bronx.
Having not been privy to the same information as my trustee colleagues here on the board, I vote to abstain.
International Brotherhood of Teamsters.
Yes.
Transport Workers Union. District Council 37.
Yes, for all the reasons stated by the Controller's Office and my colleagues in labor, we are voting yes.
Motion carries.
So I would like to just say thank you on behalf of the Controller's Office for the diligent work that was performed by the trustees in evaluating the proposal in front of us. So with that, I believe it has concluded.
R1, sorry.
I'm sorry, R1. I believe that that has concluded our public agenda, and I would make a motion to exit public session and into executive. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
All right, the motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Oh, thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries, and we will now proceed to executive session.
Okay, Ms. Okay, Ms. Winery, would you do a report out?
The board agreed to approve the corpus personnel budget and resource recommendations. The board took action on a public equity investment. The board agreed to commit funds to 2 infrastructure investments. The board took action on an economically targeted investment. The details of these transactions will be released at a later date.
Thank you, and I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Chair, we're adjourned.
Well adjourned.